Hey everybody, it's Kayla back again with another video, and today I'm going to be starting my interview segment, and today I'm interviewing one of my oldest friends, Anna. Anna, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, my name is Anna and I just recently graduated with my master's degree in geology.
And you're now working as a full-blown geologist.
Yes, I was fortunate enough to be able to land my dream job, and I'm excited to see where this is going to go.
Okay, can you let the audience know how you became interested in geology and decided to major in that in college?
Sure. So my interest in geology actually stems from my dad. We would spend a lot of time going outside, going for hikes, and just being outside, and you start to wonder about the trail that you walk on, the mountains and the hills that you're on, and or at least in my case, I started to ask these questions of why is this here? How did it get there? And what does that mean? So when we were in high school, we took earth science. Actually, we took earth science together.
I know, Mr. Delaney.
And it was a pathway to say, okay, this is the start to those answers. And as I started to learn more, the more I actually was getting more questions than I was getting answers. So it just started to evolve into the direction that I wanted to study. I mean, we live on this fantastic planet that's 4.56 billion years old that has a lot to tell us, and just waiting for the right opportunity. So that's my boring reason as to why I became a geologist.
When you were getting ready for college, did you ever think about majoring in anything else, or was geology the thing that absolutely stuck out to you?
I always wanted to do geology, but I did have a hot minute where I thought I was going to be a librarian.
I'm sure you're probably happy that you chose geology instead.
I'm very happy. I'm much more, I enjoy being outside as much as I enjoy reading and books and, the quiet environment of a library. Real glad that didn't happen.
A lot of people want to know how necessary a master's degree in geology is needed to get a job in the field of geology.
So it entirely depends on what you want to do and where you want to go. A master's degree is not the end all. You can be perfectly successful within the geosciences with just a bachelor's. And just like anything you want to go into, having a solid background, pay attention to your classes, get good grades, and going out and getting internship experience is what will make you stand apart from everybody else. Getting a master's degree definitely will give you a leg up. If you want to start off automatically with a little bit more of a pay bump, then go for it. But you can easily be successful with a bachelor's degree. But something to consider: a lot of the jobs within the geosciences are heavy within the environmental consulting industry, and they like to see the OSHA HAZWOPER training, the 40-hour. So if you can come in with some of that training already done, or with that certification, that will give you an instant boost above somebody who doesn't, because then it's just an extra step that your company won't have to put the time and money into this week-long training. You'll already have it. And a lot of institutions, depending on where you go, will either offer the training for free or give it to you at a discounted cost.
Okay. Wow. Awesome. How much of a pay bump would you say there is between a bachelor's and a master's, or somebody who has that certification?
So the certification isn't necessarily going to give you too much of a bump. It might give you a leg up in the hiring realm. But between a bachelor's and a master's, it could be anywhere between a few $1,000s to $10,000. I mean, the best example I could give, if you're looking into working federal, if you want to go for the EPA or the USGS, just the pay ranking that you come out, you can be a minimum of a GS7, which is around 40 to 43K with a bachelor's. But if you come out with a master's, then you're already at 50K. So, and that's just using the federal government scale, because it's the easiest to use and visualize. They're pretty much set in stone.
Are geology jobs concentrated in certain areas across America, or could they be found relatively easy wherever you looked across US?
You can pretty much find a geology job anywhere. I happen to be in the lovely Big Apple, and there is a lot of opportunities for a geologist. I will be doing some site assessments and remediation reports. You could also do it where you're just pushing paperwork. You can be associated with lawyers. If you want to be more associated with the oil and gas industry, being more out towards the west where that is, you would have to move for the job. But there's a lot you can do within the geosciences, so there's a lot of mobility. I mean, you can be in New York, you can be in Maine, you can be in Texas, you can be in California. If you're in California, you might be focusing on earthquakes or the fact that there's no water. If you're in Texas, you'll probably be doing oil and gas. If you're in New York, you'll probably be doing a lot of remediation and resiliency work. If you're in Michigan, you might be trying to give them clean drinking water. So it's geographic, but you can easily be able to find something that you like.
Go anywhere.
And you can always teach. Teaching is all over the place.
How easy would it be for somebody to, I'm not going to say make a career change, but somebody takes a geology job in Texas, maybe doing like the petroleum engineering thing, and they decide, I don't want to live in Texas anymore. I want to move back to
Don't blame them.
I want to move back to California. How easy would you think it would be for somebody who starts in one area of geology to move into a different area of geology?
That is a little tricky for me to answer, but from my own experience of being within the geosciences for the past few years, a lot of the skills are transferable. So just because your focus will change, your experiences will still be helpful. So if you decide that, petroleum isn't for you and you want to move to Ohio and be a professor, those experiences will still be beneficial because you're in the field and you have the hands-on experience, which is transferable regardless of where you go.
It'll just all add up and build
and it all adds up. And something I had forgotten to mention, most states now, and it's actually a big motion for it to be in all 50 states, there is a licensing process to be a geologist. So you start out, what I'm in the process of doing now is getting my fundamentals of geology, which is the first exam that you have to take. And it basically just says you can do the science and you can do it successfully and you can do it safely. And then you have to go through, it's 3 to 5 years, depending, of shadowing geologists and being an apprentice and getting your work signed off to say that you can do this and you're not a complete bum. You actually care about what you're doing. And then you take another exam, because why not? And then you can get your professional license, and then you're a professional geologist. And then once you get that, it'll carry through all the different states, because the standard is the same throughout. So I'm starting the slow process of getting my licenses.
Do you think that's a positive change for the geology landscape, or do you feel like that's just like more hurdles for geologists to go through?
As someone who's just coming out of school, the idea of taking more examinations is a pain in the butt. But I do think it's terrific that no matter where you want to work, your expectations will be the same regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, they might change if you maybe you work for state or federal, but to know that as a geologist, these are my standards, this is what I have to do, and you will be the exact same as your peers. And if you run into a situation where not everybody is super open-minded about being a woman in the geosciences, you have the license that says, I am the same, if not better.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is my own personal plug.
How would you say your experience has been as a woman so far as geology? Is geology more of a male-dominated field?
It's definitely a male-dominated field, but we're in a transition zone where a lot of those older men are retiring. And we have this new influx of new, young energy. And just kind of like everywhere you might go, there are some closed-minded folks, So I'm a little old school, a little rusty, but of every conference that I've gone to, the geology conferences, they are the most laid back, fun people to be. It's a conference that gives out free beer. I love going to GSA. Like, you get beer tickets, and you're just like, this is great, and you get to go to terrific talks and learn a lot. They're definitely very open and an accepting group.
Would you say going to school for geology was worth it for you as a whole?
For me, it was absolutely worth it. The more that I studied, the more that I did, I got to do some amazing things. I had the opportunity to go to Death Valley for a research project in undergrad. And I've lived in New York my whole life, and I ran away to Massachusetts for my undergrad. And to get to go to see something it was also my first time crossing the Mississippi River. I'm not a well-traveled individual. I'm working on it.
I feel like a lot of people in our school wasn't, for the most part.
And you get to see, we have the Catskills, which are functionally hills in comparison to when you're flying over the Rockies or you're looking at Mount Whitney, and also you're at the lowest point on Earth and it is really hot. But to get to experience what you've been looking at for a semester and reading papers and pouring your heart over and say, this is tectonics in action. I'm seeing it. I'm physically touching what I read about, is terrific. I also had the opportunity to work on a brine formation on obsidian, which was a lot of fun until my entire project dissolved in epoxy. And so that came to a grinding halt, but it still gave me the opportunity to use different tools. Like, I got to use a scanning electron microscope, and I got to look at microorganisms that were basically the size of like an eighth of a hair. They were so tiny. It was the coolest thing ever. And then it all dissolved, but research is imperfect. And while I was a grad student, I had the opportunity to be a graduate research fellow through NOAA. And I was at the NOAA Center for Weather and Climate in College Park, Maryland for a summer. And that is a complete different jump than from what I was doing, which was, a lot of the hard rock, being out in the field. I learned how to code, a lot of MATLAB, and I'm in the process of teaching myself Python because that seems to be the universal coding language. Mm-hmm. So learn to code. It's taking over. If that's one plug I gotta say. But what I was doing with that was looking at land surface temperature over New York City using one of their recently launched satellites. And it took my own vision of the geosciences, which was very set in stone, for lack of a better phrase, to seeing just how organic it can be. And just because geology it's the study of Earth, so it encompasses everything. So you have the ability to focus within the biological sciences or the chemical sciences, and throw in some physics if you're a physics kind of person. And it was a very fun change of pace. And because I had that experience, it's started to shift my own views within the geosciences and kind of the questions and things I want to attack in the future, especially with climate change being such a pressing issue in our time and a very daunting issue in our time. You don't just have to stay stuck with one idea and still be within the umbrella of the geosciences. And I think that's makes it fun and unique.
Would you say that your various experiences as a geologist and a geology major and going on to work in the field, your work is making a positive impact for humanity and for the world as a whole?
I would say so. I mean, what better way to change the world than studying it? And it gives you the opportunity to, again, hands-on, which is my big love for within the geosciences. But you can see your science in action, and you can live in one place, and your study focus area can be, you could study permafrost in the Arctic Boreal region, and see the change that's happening with the rapid melt.
How important was networking in obtaining your job in geology?
Networking is absolutely vital. If it wasn't for networking, I wouldn't have gotten the research position that I had for my graduate schooling. I had the great pleasure of attending conferences and getting the chance to talk to uh, different companies about their expectation, to talk to different schools about the projects that they're working on, because depending on where you go to school, your project's going to be a little different. Going to school in New York City, we have ties to Columbia University, which has NASA GISS. We have NOAA CREST operating out of City College, which is where I was. We have the Vermont Doherty Research Center in Palisades. So depending on where you go, your topic, your focus might be different. You go out west, you'll be doing a lot more paleontology work than what you might do in New York. So in terms of getting my job, in terms of networking, talk to everybody, figure out what they do, see what you like, see what you like, see what you don't like, see what they like and what they don't like, and then you can start to shape the kind of person and geologist you want to be. And I think that kind of goes for any field, not just within the geosciences, because it's so open and there's so many different options in what you can study.
Was it relatively easy for you to find like a mentor as a geology major and going into the field? Or did you just really just take advice from like anybody who could get a conversation rolling with?
Pretty much anybody who would let me talk and offered to listen. Because everybody's situation is unique, just like no two people are the same. But finding someone who you can bounce ideas off of, I've from when I was a freshman and I was taking my first geology classes, I still keep in contact with that professor. She was a big help in getting me to where I had to go, because I started out at a community college for my freshman year, and I had my sights set on going to Mount Holyoke. It was my dream school. It was where I wanted to go. So she helped me get the transfer stuff figured out and made sure that when I was ready to transfer after my freshman year, that I was surefire in. And it's just been on the up and up. And so she and I still keep in touch. We'll grab dinner from time to time. And even though she's not directly involved in the field that I'm in, it's still good to have someone who you can just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This makes sense, right? All a little new. You're kind of a veteran. So yeah, it's good. It's good to have a mentor and good to have people you can talk to.
What do you think made you stand out from your peers when you applied to your current job? Like, what was the it factor about you?
The it factor that it came up a few times in my interview was the fact that I was coming in with experience. I had taken a gap year between my undergrad and my grad, which wasn't intentional. It was a funding issue. And I had worked at a water testing company. So I would go out. I had the customer service, I had the field experience. So we would collect soil and water samples. And because I had done that, I had, in that case, already had a year's worth of professional experience under my belt. And I had also had the opportunity through my college to take classes on phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessment. And that's not like it's a certification that you can get, but they're site assessments that every environmental company in the US does. And I came in with knowledge of the ASTM standards and EPA regulations. So I came in with that little bit of a leg up just because I was curious about it. And that also gave me the chance to get the OSHA 40-hour HAZWOPER training. So I was coming in with, even though in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a lot of experience, it was still experience that was relevant to where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do while still being a student.
So what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis in your job as a geologist?
So day to day, I roughly spend 60 to 80% of my time out in the field. So what I do isn't an office job. which is great. I'm not someone who can sit in a cubicle all day long and just crunch numbers. So we'll go out to a site and we do a lot of remediation work. So we'll do a site evaluation. We'll see what's there, evaluate groundwater, soil, rock type, what the ground was used for previously, what they want to use the ground for in the future, and give recommendation if there's any sort of pollutant that needs to be cleaned up or cleared up so that it can be used for something, or if there is too much of a certain pollutant that might, have to halt production so that that contaminant can be addressed. Then we come back, read up the report, and any samples that we collect along the way, we'll send off to the lab so we can get a full markup of what's happening, and we'll send it on its way.
How much paperwork do you think you have to deal with on your job?
Enough to get through a lot of podcasts.
And the time that you do spend in your office or your cubicle, in that time, are you doing any coding work to complement what you're doing in the field?
I personally am not doing a lot of coding. We do have a separate department for remote sensing folks that do the coding, but I do have a background on it. So if they ever need a hand, I'm always like, hey, I can help. But not that I have the time, but
tag me in. What would you say to the people who think geology isn't like a hard science?
Well, rocks are hard, so all jokes aside. The hard sciences are basically anything that's within the natural sciences. So the same thing with physics, chemistry, biology. It's what is it? For hard sciences have control variables, dependent, independent variables. That's it. It's measured and quantifiable. Unlike I know the psychologists and the sociologists will get a little angry at me, but that's more, or like the social sciences, that's more of the softer thoughts, emotions, feelings, a little less of what you can control versus the hard sciences where it's going to happen a certain way and we can keep it in a controlled setting. So including the pun, it is a hard science.
What would you consider the most prestigious jobs in geology?
Depends on what really you want to do, but if you want to pay back your student loans in no time, going into oil and gas is the way to go. That's where you can make
the highest salaries,
$1,000 plus a year. That would be the most prestigious if you're talking about what's being put into your bank account.
Yeah, pure like monetary value of.
Right, if you want to pay off your student loans in 6 months, then that's what you want to do. But then if you also want to use science to change the world, getting involved in organizations like NOAA, NASA, or the USGS, where even though it's a federal position, you can still make a decent high up there salary, and you get to tackle some of the pressing questions. So depends on what you want to do. Or if you want to teach, depending on the university you go to. Mm-hmm. I mean, teaching at Harvard would be awesome, but maybe somewhere down the line, that's for me.
For professor positions in geology, I'm going to assume a PhD is needed in almost every case, or are there opportunities for teaching opportunities for people who just have a master's?
There are opportunities. Again, that kind of depends on the institution. A lot of community colleges will hire you to teach a class or two if you just have your master's. And then if they really like you, they can bring you on to be an associate or a full-time professor. Typically, four-year schools like to see a PhD. And if you're lucky, they'll help you out so you can get it. But you can very successfully teach with just a master's in geology.
Cool.
And do college, not have to worry about, like teaching high school. That's not your thing, which isn't mine.
No, you don't want to deal with.
I can handle college kids. That's about it.
Do you believe there are entrepreneurial opportunities in the world of geology? Like my audience is into that kind of thing, so I figured I would get your input on that.
There definitely is. If you wanted to go into the world of environmental consulting, which is a little bit of what I do. It's this beautiful combination of like office work and field work and They do some remediation cleanup efforts and focus a lot on drinking water and like the effects of above ground and below ground storage tanks and so on. And you could have one anywhere. I mean, you can make it local and you can just focus on your town or your city. You could have a larger audience and be statewide or global. The company that I work for happens to be international. We're all over the place. But to go into environmental consulting, from what I've seen, just takes some good scientists and a business plan, which I'd like took a econ class and that was the extent of it. So that's not me. I'll be your scientist though.
Let's move into the realities versus expectation segment. What are a few realities versus expectations that you have come across as your time in going through school for geology and working in the field?
Okay, so to the inexperienced person, when I say I'm a geologist, I get the cool rocks. And that's basically the extent of it. I also get the, oh, so do you study volcanoes? Dinosaurs? Are you an archaeologist? Are you Indiana Jones? Ish, not really, though. The Geosciences, as I've hinted to throughout this, is very open and it can do a lot. I actually had some I was at a job fair in this past October, and I was talking to a firm that was looking to make maps that was going to help build more sidewalks that were handicap accessible. And I was like, great, I meet all the qualifications. I go to hand the recruiter my resume, and she says, oh, geology. I was like, yeah, that, I'm getting my master's. It's, this whole big thing. And she was like, oh, I just thought that was like rocks and stuff. I was like, it is, but I can use mapping software. I can code. I have the experience. I mean, you can see in my resume, I check off all the boxes. She's like, huh, we just don't consider geologists. We were thinking we wanted an engineer. And they took my resume and I never heard from them, which was fine. But it's just interesting to see how people have this preconceived notion of, because I studied geology, automatically I spend all my time, digging up dinosaur bones, which I have friends who actually do that for their dissertation. And I think that's terrific, but I just don't have the patience for it. And then the other is, oh, so you're going into oil. So no, I mean, at one point, I think every geoscientist has a thought of, I can go into oil and I can pay off all my bills and then I can buy a Land Rover. But that's not just it, because you can go into all these different tracks and you can take all these different paths. And it's just a matter of finding what you like within it. And there's a lot of opportunities. So pay attention in class, because that's where you're going to find your gateway.
What would you say to the people who's watching right now who are interested in working and majoring in geology? What kind of insight, advice, what do they need to know?
First off, go for it. Don't listen to people who want to say that geology is just a hobby, because it's exactly what you make of it. To some, geology is going on a hike, collecting a shiny rock, and putting it on a shelf. To others, it's working on a coastal resiliency plan so that when we have another hurricane like Harvey or Sandy, we don't completely destroy our shorelines again. Don't listen to the haters. But go out and get experience. Geology is a very unique science where we study exactly what we're standing on. So go out, look at it, experience, go to our national parks, go to our museums, see what's happening, and stay in touch with recent work and publications. The nice thing is that, and I'm going to use my really bad pun again, is that everything is set in stone. So it's really hard to falsify your science. So get field experiences, go out for internships, and have fun. That's probably my biggest takeaway for being a geologist, is that there's a lot of opportunities. You just have to dig around.
So, thank you so much for coming on here. I think we had a great discussion, and I'm sure for the people who are watching this, they're going to be so thankful that you gave your insight and advice and your experiences so far as a geology major and working in geology. Thank you a million times. Thank you for being my first interview.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. My face is a little red, but that's okay.
I think mine is too. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview with Anna. Be sure to give this video a like. If you have any comments or questions, be sure to leave them down below. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Until next time, I'll see you around in another one of my videos. Bye!